I keep telling you folks, you don't know what's going on. While the Koch brothers publicly did not endorse Donald Trump, behind the scenes they do. The Mercer family, by the way, are the billionaires who give Trump most of his money. Trump is not a billionaire, and that's why he doesn't want his taxes, because let me just put it this way, he owes a lot of money to the Russian mobs, okay? But related to what the brother's saying here, because I'm digressing. If they get their Article 5 convention, based on the number of states in this country that have a governor from the Republican Party or the state Congress from the Republican Party, and they call for an Article 5 convention, the federal government will have no power, which means blacks, you have no civil rights. Women, you have no rights. There will be no recognizable federal government. And with this guy now declaring that he's going to become a Republican, they're right on the border of having one more state they need where they can call for ratification of Article 5 convention. And if they do that, folks, we're headed for a civil war. And I'm going to be right on the front line, because I've been warning you folks about this for 5 years on Mr. Nelson's show, and you think I'm crazy. And, brother, thank you for calling in and sharing this. But I'm sorry, did you have something else to say?
No, that's all I wanted. I just want to. I thought it was 30. I thought they were over the line, whatever.
They're right on the border.
One more.
They're right on the border. What happened was because North Carolina, even though they tried to rig the elections, the governor of North Carolina, who ended up winning, is a Democratic. So what they've done in North Carolina, they basically stopped him from passing any legislation now. They basically made him a lame duck governor in his first term, where the state legislature, which is Tea Party-led Republicans who hate federal government, who won a civil war in this country, and they're going to get it, because I'm going to be right on the front line. I ain't going nowhere, okay? North Carolina was going to give them enough states, but because that Democratic governor won, now I think they have enough states.
All right, hang on a second, fellas. We got to take a quick break here.
Yeah,
the drum's getting ready to warm up. All right, 800-450-7876. Stay with us, Philip. I'll let you finish your follow-up to Mark from Anaheim. Folks, you too can join the discussion right here on FM 95.9 and AM 1450. WOL, where information is power. Let's go back to Mark from Anaheim, and Philip was calling from Chicago.
Mr. Nelson, before you go to the call, I have one other update. I'm so sorry. When I was saying updates earlier, now, Mr. Nelson, back in 1996, the spring of 1996, I came on your show, and, I told your listeners how I refused to testify in the O.J. Simpson trial, and you had one of your callers calling, hey, what did Mark have to do with the trial? And you told him, I'm an expert in knife fighting, and they wanted me to come in and testify based on the knife wounds. But I bring up O.J. Simpson again because few people may not know this. You know who it was that made the 911 call that started that whole thing?
No, I have no idea.
William Colby's son. Ever heard of William Colby?
CIA director?
An OSS boy who supposedly drowned. And, Dick Gregory and I know otherwise, and some other folks know otherwise, but his son, I guess, talks the company line, and he says his father accidentally drowned. Now, mind you, his dad's got food on the table that's untouched. And his dad just happens to go for a swim out back in a storm in this river or whatever. But anyway, I mention this because the dog was barking. So when Colby made that phone call, it was because of this barking dog, which proved to be Nicole Brown Simpson's dog. Do you know how they knew that was Nicole Brown Simpson's dog?
No, how could they tell?
Because the dog had a microchip. Bear with me, folks. There's a meaning to my madness here. So I came on your show back in 1996 in the spring, and I told your listeners how Timothy McVeigh, because Oklahoma City bomber had recently happened, he claimed, by the way, my brother served, actually, well, my brother ranked him, but Timothy McVeigh served in the same unit with my brother in the Army. And Timothy McVeigh claimed that he had a microchip in him. And I told your listeners back in the spring of 1996 that few folks knew that Nicole Brown Simpson's dog had a microchip in it. I told your listeners how royal families in other countries were already microchipping their children because they claimed that if their children were the victims of kidnap or hostage, they would be able to track them. I also told your listeners that probably a lot of wealthy families in this country were already doing the same thing. And I said it wouldn't be surprised me if many special operation units had members who were being microchipped so they can use GPS satellite global positioning. Now, I say all this to you, Mr. Nelson, because the last thing I said on that show in the spring of 1996 was, it would not be surprising to me if in the future employees will be required to be microchipped to have a job. So for you listeners out there who didn't hear those shows back in the 90s, all I ask you is to do your own homework and research and just simply Google employer requires company microchip for everyone. Mr. Nelson, there are already several companies in the United States that now require their employees to have microchips in their body. Are you aware of that?
No, I thought they were just discussing it. I didn't know it was already implemented.
There ain't no discussing. There's several companies in the United States who already require their employees to have microchips. So you folks out there who are listening today, you know I'm not going to lie to you. Simply Google employer requires microchip for employees. But let's go on, Mr. Nelson.
Philip, you got to follow it.
Yeah. I know that somebody in Wisconsin just got the chip. The numbers in Chicago, when it comes to violent crime, like I said, the 4th of July, they were saying there was 100 shootings and da-da-da. How accurate do you believe these numbers are? And can you just talk about your thoughts of those numbers and why the Republican Party uses them to the extent that they do?
Absolutely, sir. First and foremost, Chicago doesn't even rank in the top 20 when it comes to most violent crimes. I won't lie to you folks. Chicago doesn't even make the top 20 major cities for the most violent crime. Much of the violent crime, unfortunately, is black on black, brown on brown. I alluded earlier to the fact that when George Hallis paid for my last year of college, that was in 1980. Well, my senior year was 81 at the College of Charleston. But in 1969, I actually went to a Soldier Field game with the Chicago Bears and the College All-Stars. They quit doing that, by the way, Mr. Nelson, because so many College All-Stars used to get hurt in that game against the Chicago Bears, and they were all on contracts, major NFL contracts, and couldn't play for the team had just signed them out of college. But in Chicago, back in the 60s, we used to have the Blackstone Rangers. The Black Panthers wouldn't go in areas controlled by the Blackstone Rangers, okay? And we know about Fred Hampton and other folks who were major players in Chicago, who were assassinated by the Chicago Police Department. Now, El Rukins and other gangs are running areas that were known by... So trust me, folks, I'm not like some total stranger to the Chicago area. And back in those days, Cabrini Green, you talk to some old-timer cops from Chicago, they wouldn't go into Cabrini Green unless they had to. And now Cabrini Green is primarily white, middle-class college students going to college, because that's part of that, what we used to call back then, urban renewal, Negro removal, gentrification. So what the caller is alluding to, and Mr. Nelson, I have to tell you, you have some of the smartest callers in the world. They already know the answer. They're asking a rhetorical question because they want me to say it. In Chicago, when you see these blasts on the news about the violence, the crime, those are neighborhoods that white folks want to own again and get the Negroes and the Browns out. So you're going to see these blasts on the news telling you how bad it is in Chicago. And once those neighborhoods get focused for regentrification, the people who've been living there for 2, 3, 4 generations will no longer be able to afford their property tax. They will clean up the area, and it will be white and Asians, middle and upper class.
Philip, I thank you for your call. I had a tweet in between. The person wanted to know, how does one get microchipped and not know?
We mean not know. The employees have to willingly do it. If they want a job there, they got to get the microchip. What about not knowing? Did they know? You want
That's just a tweet question.
Get a microchip.
Yeah. All right. 800-450-7876. Cynthia's next up. She's on line 6. She's calling from the district. Cynthia, you're on with Mark from Anaheim. Cynthia, there on line 6.
It's funny that you say that because it was on the news today. They didn't say what business it was, but there are some of the employees volunteered to be what you call microchipped or chipped or whatever. So yeah, that's already here.
Yeah, and the companies know where you are on duty and off duty.
Yeah, that's the frightening part in reference.
And they
to
talk about
duty.
you don't have to go to the break room anymore and pay for your meals because they can automatically deduct the money from your bank account.
Yes, I don't like all that.
But I'm sorry, go ahead, sis.
Yeah, this is.
I'm sorry, sis. Where are you calling from again?
Washington D.C.
Oh my God, District of Criminals.
Oh yeah, the gentrification.
The reason I'm saying that because in D.C. There's the MetroLink system, and you know how D.C., Maryland, and Virginia have all paid into the MetroLink system, which could be the greatest example of a MetroLink system in the world, Mr. Nelson. And you know why it's always a disaster, Mr. Nelson? Because D.C. is a federal territory, and the Tea Party libertarians in Washington, D.C. continue to slash the budget so that the MetroLink system will not have the proper maintenance, and that's why they're having fatalities, accidents, and just total disruption. But I'm sorry, sis, go ahead.
Yeah, hopefully you can help me out on this, maybe sort this out for me. For example, a soldier divulging government secrets. A plain soldier, or let's say an average Marine, would probably be put under Fort Knox. But this is what I'm trying to figure out. Why is it that Chelsea Manning was taken out of the brig, but yet Snowden is not getting the same opportunity? And then the second question is in reference to Ed Snowden. How do you think that he's faring in Russia? We knew he didn't want to go there anyway. He wanted to go to a South American country. But how do you think that he's faring right now?
Yes, ma'am. All right, folks. Interesting call, and I don't think the sis is going to really like what I'm going to tell you. Snowden is no hero. Snowden is a Tea Party libertarian plant who was sent in to destroy the Obama administration. Snowden's attorney is the same guy who was Rand Paul's campaign manager. You folks need to do some homework here. Snowden is a racist. He's a misogynist. He is a Nazi. And his job was to go in to embarrass the Obama administration so that when Obama had world leader meetings with people like Merkel out of Germany and others, they were savage. In fact, many meetings were canceled because of what Snowden did. There's some things I can't talk about this, but I'll just say this. Many people within the intelligence community and other countries who we had as assets are now dead because of Snowden. And I'm going to tell you straight out, I'm not God, and I shouldn't make a judgment. And I've said this already in Mr. Nelson's show. If I saw Snowden walking down the street, I would take him out in a heartbeat. You folks have no idea who Snowden is. And it ain't no accident that Snowden's in Russia. The Tea Party Libertarian Party is funded by the Koch brothers. The Koch brothers' father was a Nazi, got most of his money made out of Russia, the former Soviet Union. Ayn Rand is the Bible they read. Ayn Rand is from Russia. Snowden went to Russia. Now you got a grand jury being convened because of Trump and Russia. Wake the hell up, folks.
Well, Mark, what about Manning?
Let me finish this, because this is important here. The Tea Party Libertarian is nothing but a front for the John Birch Society. The John Birch Society are folks who hate the United States government, and they are in bed with the Russians. I've been telling folks this for more than 20 years, and Snowden's doing just damn well in Russia. As far as Manning goes, the only reason they're going after Manning was because he wanted to have a sex change. She, now Chelsea. She did her time. She got out. And I don't really look at Manning as harshly as I do with Snowden. Even though Manning, I believe, should have gotten more time in prison. I'm a little disappointed that Manning's out of prison. Meanwhile, the Obama administration didn't make sure that Bergdahl was protected, because Bergdahl is not a traitor. Bergdahl was going to tell about all the war crimes going on, so they went after him. And Bergdahl, who knows how long he's going to be alive. So I'll just say this to your system. Manning, in my humble opinion, should still be in federal prison. Snowden should be executed. There it is.
Thanks.
And I have no problem doing it. And I have no problem doing it myself. And I know a lot of Marines, Special Forces, and Navy SEALs with my background who are not in bed with Trump and Flynn and Mattis and we all say we would take Snowden out in a heartbeat.
All right. 800-450-7876. Can we take another call, or we have to go to a break? The drums are warming up, telling us we got to take the break. Folks, we'll take the calls from
I need a break after that.
Really? Let's digest that, and then we'll come back right here on FM 95.9 and AM. Thanks for staying with us, folks. And our guest is Mark in Anaheim. Those of you who are new to the show, Mark is not his real name, and he's really not in Anaheim, but that's what we had to use back in the day when Mark was giving us all this great information on the radio. In fact, so much so, the LAPD assigned an officer just to tape the show, because we were on the air at like 4 o'clock in the morning. And the one way we found out, I guess his cassette tape malfunctioned one day, so he came to the station, pick up a copy, and he told us, hey, we tape your show every day, especially when that Mark from Anaheim fellow was on. that was interesting. Did you know that they did that, Mark? That they taped the show, especially when you were on?
Mr. Nelson, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Do you know why I was allowed to be on your shows as long as I was?
No.
Why? One, it wasn't just LAPD. Marine Corps taped all those shows, NSC, and a whole bunch of stuff. But the point is, with LAPD, they called me. In fact, the Los Angeles Police Protective League called me the official deep throat for the LAPD. Because stuff I came on your show and said, they didn't have a clue. All these cops think they know what's going on. All these so-called military folks, because I don't use that term, it's a condescending term from the civilian world against World War II. Armed forces personnel who thought they knew what was going on, they don't have a clue. You know who was one of my biggest fans at LAPD when I was coming on your show?
No, who was that?
None other than Bernie Parks' wife, while Bernie Parks was the chief of LAPD. Okay? So what I'm saying to you is they didn't know where I was coming from, but they would start listening to the show because I knew they were going to go after me, even though I never used my name and I never told people I worked for LAPD. But as they started listening to me and they started doing their own research, they're like, damn, Mr. Nelson, I would have people call me from Parker Center and tell me there was another special meeting with all the chiefs, deputy chiefs, assistant chiefs, commanders, and somebody in the room would go, that damn Michael Parler, that's my real name, I don't give a damn anymore, that damn Michael Parler once again was on the radio talking, and you know what, he's right. But I never mentioned that at LAPD, even though I taught at the academy for 10 years, and all my recruits used to listen to the shows coming in too. The only way they could have heard that was listening to your show, Mr. Nelson. So I knew they were taping the shows, and they would send somebody down there to get copies of the show. But I wanted to say something, because during the break, I think I made a mistake before the break, and I said that regarding Snowden. Snowden's attorney was Ron Paul's campaign manager when he ran for president. So trust me, folks, Snowden is not somebody who just came out of nowhere. They were trying to destroy the Negro in the White House, and they basically performed a coup. Benghazi was part of the coup plan. You can even Google that now. Just Google Benghazi coup attempt against Obama. You folks have no idea what's going on. Seriously. Maybe you don't want to know. And the last thing I just wanted to say, going back to the Snowden thing. Snowden not only hates the Negroes, not only hates women, but in typical fashion, he feels any white person, for you white folks listening today, all white folks, for you old white folks who think that Trump is your hero, Snowden thinks that any white folks or others on Social Security no longer serve a purpose to mankind and should be eliminated. And if you think I'm making this up, just Google Snowden Social Security recipients should die. Snowden Social Security recipients should die. You folks have no idea what's going on. Seriously. Let's move on.
800-450-7876. Go to line 4. Peter's calling us from the BK in New York. Peter?
Damn, you say PK. I thought you were talking about blood killer, but I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Good evening,
Burger King.
Good evening, Mark.
Burger King. And what happened to Herman Cain, man? You don't hear squat from that house Negro anymore, but I'm sorry. I digress.
Yes, 2 quick questions. Mark, as to the Trump administration, what's really going on with the deep state, the neocons, and all of these generals and armed forces personnel surrounding the Trump White House and Homeland Security? Because I'm of the belief that, at some point, this is going to have some serious ramifications for black folks, you know, and I'm really, you know, thinking that it's a serious concern, but we don't see what's really going on yet. So I want your thoughts on that. And then my second question has to do with a comment you made previously on the Carl Nelson show.
Okay. All right, now I got to be careful how I answer this. Back in the 90s, there was a Hollywood movie that came out called Crimson Tide. Gene Hackman starred in the movie as the Navy commander, and Denzel Washington was a lieutenant commander. That movie basically showed you the concern when a submarine commander has the power to launch nuclear weapons without having to go through all the protocols and without the president making the final decision. Now, of course, during the Clinton years, they changed that policy, and I am kind of happy they did that, because with Trump in the White House, I don't know if that's a good thing. But anyway, some of my mentors told me later on when they came out with the movie Hunt for Red October, everybody thought this movie was based on the U.S. hunting a Soviet, because this is still before the Cold War ended, the Soviet Union submarine. That's not exactly what I was told by some of my mentors. That movie was actually talking about Office of Naval Intelligence up against Central Intelligence Agency. Now, for the listeners out there who don't know my background, many if not most of my mentors were former World War II Nazis and Office of Strategic Services, OSS, old boys. Most of them are dead now, which is why I don't have a problem saying what I'm saying. I'm a Ronin. If you all don't know what a Ronin is, my mentors are dead, which means I'm a free agent, and I'll just say this. I'm waiting for the Civil War. There's a Civil War coming, folks, and there's a World War coming, folks. You guys can believe what the hell you want, but like Dick Gregory will tell you, I'm a human early warning system. We are headed for a Civil War, and we are headed for a World War. With the movie Hunt for Red October being about Office of Naval Intelligence and CIA fighting each other. When Donald Trump began running for president, 44 of the top intelligence personnel in this country who were Republicans came out and publicly supported Hillary Clinton, including one Michael Hayden, who I met down here in Orange County at the Nixon Library when he was here not too long ago. There is a major war going on within the intelligence community. So I really have to be careful how I answer this question. And folks like Mattis, Hayden, Flynn, look at their backgrounds, folks. Those are folks who were relieved of commands or forced to retire or to get out during the Obama years. And now you guys are praising them. Mad Dog Mattis, he's one of the biggest jerks on the planet. Seriously. And I'm not saying that lightly. Trust me, I'm not saying anything here lightly today. There is a major war going on. And the brother, when he alludes to the fact of ramifications for black folks, you're damn right. Because when you got folks within the intelligence community, CIA, DIA, and folks, you never hear about the DIA, Defense Intelligence Agency. I run a Facebook site for military intelligence that's closed to the public. And most of the folks in there are idiots, ignorant, don't have a clue. And they read my stuff and they're like, huh? But see, now they have access to the internet, and they're like, and so they don't even comment when they, I had some woman who's in my closed site for military intelligence who go, Donald Trump is going to make America great again. He's going to drain the swamp. When you got folks like that working with an intelligence who are dumber than a doorknob, I'll just say this to you without trying to get myself in trouble more than I'm already, because I'm sure I'm getting in trouble after this damn show. But there is a major war going on within the intelligence community. Right now, if you haven't heard, there's this talk about sending more U.S. personnel into Afghanistan. Well, Eric Prince, who I'm no fan of, as you all know by now, and whose sister is running the Department of Education, Eric Prince and Flynn and Mattis and others behind the scenes are trying to convince Trump not to send in 2,000 to 4,000 U.S. personnel, but to send in 10,000 to 20,000, and 85% or more of those individuals are all going to be mercenaries, private army. because there's a whole lot of natural resources in Afghanistan that you don't hear about. And I know because I was recruited to be a mercenary in Afghanistan against the Soviet Union back in the 70s when the Soviet Union were there. So I'm just telling you folks, when the brother asked this question about the deep state, that's kind of a misnomer. It's always been a deep state. Mr. Nelson, I came on your show back in 1992, and I told your listeners that Bill Clinton would be president. One of my naval intelligence mentors, his son worked in a law firm with Bill and Hillary Clinton. So I knew about Bill and Hillary long before you folks heard. The weekend before Bill Clinton was even, before the Tuesday elections of 1992, the Orange County edition of the LA Times posted a 2-page ad, and it showed Bill and Hillary and Chelsea and the dog, and they listed 100 people in that ad, 2-page ad, and my name was one of them for helping to put him in the White House. Unfortunately, as time went on, I realized how corrupt they were too. That's when I just got out of politics altogether, because it ain't about Democratic or Republican, they're all corrupt. That's when I refused to send in my paperwork for a Fulbright scholarship as well as a White House fellowship. And it was Fulbright who put Bill Clinton where he was. So I'm just saying to you, that war started back then. A lot of generals died. A lot of colonels died. A lot of Navy captains died because there was a war within the within the intelligence community when Bill Clinton became president. Because remember, Daddy, the closest president I've ever been to is Daddy, George Herbert Walker Bush. And I'm just happy he's around. But the fact is, he was OSS, Naval Intelligence.
Yeah, hold the thought right there. You gotta take our last look at the
no idea what's going on.
Help us out. 800-450-7876. Our guest is Mark from Anaheim. The ticket calls next is 800-450-7876. And let's go back out to Brooklyn. Peter, I know you had a follow-up question.
Hang on, I didn't finish.
Okay, go ahead.
And I'm just going to, I apologize to the listeners here because Peter's calling from Brooklyn. And I have to be very, very, very careful how I respond to his questions. Okay, I'll just say this. Okay, when Carl Nelson brought me on his show back in '92, I told him that Bill Clinton would become president because at the time you had Ross Perot, Daddy Bush, and Bill Clinton running for president. Well, they're all three related by blood, and their families are all from the same country. The same small town in Great Britain. But I told them that Bill Clinton would become president because he had more royal blood than Daddy Bush as well as Ross Perot. By the way, Ross Perot was Naval Intelligence also. Daddy Bush was Naval Intelligence and OSS. I'm not going to tell you who Bill was. But Daddy Bush did not go into Iraq the way the neocons wanted him to back in 1992. I got orders to Kuwait. It was funny because they said, how much time do you need to get ready? And I go, as soon as the riots are over, because we had the riots going, they go, disregard to stay there in L.A. And some general from the Pentagon made them give me some night vision goggles for the riots out here. But during that time, another thing that Daddy Bush didn't do that really upset the so-called moral majority in the far right wing, he did not send the Marines in to kill Negroes and Latinos in L.A. during the riots. These Marines, I was one of the first of 2 infantry platoon commanders and light armored vehicles for LAV for Marine Corps. LAVs were at Long Beach Naval Base, which is gone now, and they were standing by to come into LA to wipe out the black community and the brown community. You guys have no idea what was going on. And Daddy Bush said, hell no, I will never turn the Marines loose in L.A. Now, they had the National Guard here, but the Marines were ordered to stand down at Long Beach Naval Base. And because Daddy Bush would not turn the Marines against the Negroes, and you folks, let me just tell you this, that whole L.A. riot thing was staged because they wanted to have this so-called martial law. This is not the first time they tried to do it. For you folks who want to go back and do some research, during the Nixon years, it was called the Houston Plan. Houston without an O. H-U-S-T-O-N. Houston Plan. Now, after Reagan came into the White House with these John Birch fanatics, they tried to do it again. Now, when Daddy Bush came in, Daddy Bush is not a conservative. He's a moderate. I was closer to Daddy Bush than anybody else who ever sat in the White House. And Daddy Bush would not go into Iraq. He did his 100-hour war in Kuwait. He didn't send the Marines into L.A., and the far right wing punished him because Bill Clinton, he would have done it. He don't give a damn. Seriously. So Bill Clinton comes into the White House, and there was a major war going on. Folks, I wish I was lying. There's so many high-ranking officers who died during the first term of, and in fact, hell, the chief of naval operations, Admiral Border, committed suicide. Now, when Clinton was running, I started doing radio shows with Carl Nelson, along with guys like Colonel Hackworth. Now, you guys ever seen the movie Apocalypse Now? That movie is loosely based on Colonel Hackworth, even though he was never in Air Carroll. And Hackworth and I, and along with some other high-ranking officers, we saw what was happening in this country. We saw Ollie North and these other guys trying to take over this country, and we tried to put a stop to it. And that's why I started doing radio shows with Carl Nelson. Another reason why I started doing radio shows with Carl Nelson, because I knew LAPD could never use me undercover as a cop because people would recognize my voice on the radio. And that's how I got out. By the way, that's how I got out the O.J. Simpson trial. Be patient with me here, folks. Trust me, there's a meaning to why I'm being very careful how I respond to this question. With all this going on, within the naval intelligence community, within DIA and Central Intelligence, major war going on, a lot of people got killed. I hated Ollie North, and I'm not using that term loosely, but when Ollie North testified during Iran-Contra, he told Congress if he was honest, they said they would give him a pardon. After he testified in Iran-Contra, they tried to go after him. So even though I despise Ollie North, I, along with others with my background, put up the money for his legal defense fund to keep him out of prison. There's just so much going on here, folks. The brother has right for concern. Within the intelligence community right now, there's a major war going on. 85% of the CIA today is privatized. Much of the intelligence that's provided to these so-called police department fusion centers is a bunch of BS. It's right-wing, John Birch Society folks who are providing crap because they have a political agenda. For you folks out here in L.A., the Los Angeles Police Department, one of their major spy scandals, the biggest spy scandal ever was Public Disorder Intelligence Division, PDID. Well, they used to get their intelligence from Weston Goals Foundation. Weston Goals Foundation was headed by that #1 man in the John Birch Society, McDonald. McDonald allegedly died on a plane that was shot down by the Soviets, Korean Airlines Flight 007. Weston Goals today is headquartered out of the UK. They are bigger, they are stronger than ever before. Much of the crap that you're seeing in right-wing media, much of the crap that you're hearing in mainstream media is being provided by organizations to the far right who have privatized most of our intelligence community. And now Eric Prince and others want Trump to send in 20,000 troops into Afghanistan, and 85% of those troops they want to be private contractors. We call them mercenaries. So, brother, I'm sorry for that long-winded response, but I have to be very careful on that question because I'm going to get in trouble after that one. But what else do you have, brother?
Right, I hope I didn't get you in trouble. I hope I don't get you in trouble. Right, and I hope I don't get you in trouble on the second one. And it may be a little bit from left field to the audience, but it's in regards to a comment you made previously on the Carl Nelson show in reference to a move by the white supremacists to fake an alien invasion.
Right.
And I'd like to know where you...
Let me tell you how they work this, okay?
Right.
There are folks in this country, and I don't know how true it is, but during World War II, there were Nazis who swore that aliens provided them with technology. There were U.S. Army Air Corps pilots who swore they saw UFOs during World War II. We brought the Nazis here under Operation Paperclip after the war. I should know because most of my mentors were former Nazis who came here under Operation Paperclip. And the ones who worked in JPL, Jet Propulsion Lab out of Pasadena, NASA, they allegedly brought the technology that they were shown by aliens, which is why NASA was leading in the space industry. More importantly, these folks believe that when the aliens take over this planet, they're going to ascribe to the white Aryan, blue blood, blue-eyed, whiter than white, and everybody else is going to die. That's how seriously, they truly believe that the aliens who are going to come back to this planet are looking for the Aryan race. And in the Marine Corps, and it's sad to say because when I was accepted, I'm a Mustang, I was a sergeant when I got accepted to the officer program, thanks to that naval intelligence person whose son worked with Bill and Hillary. More blacks were accepted into the Marine Corps officer program in 1981 when I was than are today. They're taking their country back. And with this whole thing with the Aryan race kind of thing, if you notice, most of the folks in the Trump administration that are making the decisions are part of the alt-right and the Aryan. They truly believe in this Aryan race thing. So I'm going to let you ask your question, brother. I'll just tell you folks this. I'm not somebody who discounts the alien UFO thing. I would just say when I was up in 29 Pond, I was part of Rapid Deployment Force. I have Marines to this day, Mr. Nelson, who contact me discreetly on Facebook because I had a platoon out in the middle of the Mojave Desert, and in the middle of the night, we saw stuff in the skies that nobody on this planet could have the technology for. And I truly believe, I'm not making this up, and I'm not being hyperbolic when I say this to you. When I listen to radio or television and I hear the news put on the weather report and they say, don't spend more than 5 minutes out in the sun today, who the hell are they talking to? Because if you work on the highways, you're out in the sun. If you're in school and you're on the playground, you're out in the sun. I think they're already here, sir. I'm not being hyperbolic when I tell you this. I think we already have aliens here. And they were the ones, when you'd hear that weather broadcast, don't spend more than 5 minutes in the sun today. They're talking to the aliens, and they are Aryan. But I'm sorry,
well,
brother.
The reason, Mark, why I asked the question is NASA just established a new department with that's supposed to be dealing with extraterrestrial contact.
That's correct.
And if they can fake an alien invasion, then that means they could also fake the second coming.
But not only that, brother, check this out. Because of the Nazi technology we brought here, they already have the capability of creating holographic images, so you could actually be looking up in the sky at night and think we're having an alien invasion when it's not. I'm not making this up.
Right. So now, what again, and my concern is for black people. I'm not concerned with anybody else.
I understand.
How do we deal with what's really going on out here?
What I try to do is this. I'm at the Bands U.S. Open of Surfing right now, and I don't talk politics. In fact, if it wasn't for my... God, I love my surfers, because if it wasn't for my surfers, I'd have already probably done something stupid by now. They help me maintain my sanity. But yeah, I'm going to tell you, brother, seriously, I'll be at the middle of the Bands U.S. Open of Surfing. I'm on the
Mark, hold that story for a second, because we got to take another break. I'll let you tell that story on the other side. Peter, thank you for your call. 800-450-7876 gets you in. That's a big show. It rolls on from FM 95.9 and AM 1450.
He shot and killed the police, and you don't hear nothing about that. Hey, can you talk about the designer babies? And I'll take it off there. Thank you.
Mayhem ain't going to do it to me today. I'm going to be very brief and concise with this. First of all, I've been researching the murder and assault of law enforcement since 1982. Now, I came on Mr. Nelson's show here back in, well, I should just tell you this because, it's funny, I keep talking about the Bands U.S. Open of Surfing. I was on the Huntington Beach Pier during the Bands U.S. Open of Surfing. It was the first day some professional photographer on the beach took a photograph of me standing on the pier saying, hands up, don't shoot. Now, mind you, my birth name is Michael Brown. I knew nothing about Ferguson or Michael Brown. 2 days later, Michael Brown was shot and killed. And that whole thing was hands up, don't shoot. Now, Kelly Slater, major world champion, that weekend, he was surfing in a contest. He needed a very important score. while riding that wave, he did the same thing I did on Huntington Beach Pier, and he put his hands up, because we know. And he won the contest. He got the score. But when he finished that wave, he had his hands up, don't shoot, don't shoot. And, of course, Kelly and I've known Kelly for a long time, because we're both from the East Coast. But the point is, when I was on that pier, and I did that, not knowing about Michael Brown, and this whole ramification came out of Ferguson, I told folks, I've been researching cop assaults and cop murders since 1982. Now, I'm telling you today, August 3rd, 2017, I have yet to find one cop killed by anybody who had a direct connection to Black Lives Matter. I also came on this show and told you that Black Lives Matter would be labeled domestic terrorist enemy number one, because what they did, they rallied the colored folks in St. Louis County to vote. And now they have a county council that's 50% black. If that was to happen around the country, Republicans would never get elected again. Then we wouldn't be worrying about Article 5 convention. We wouldn't be worried about a Donald Trump in the White House, except for the fact they rigged the elections on computers, but that's a show for another day. So, what you're seeing and what Mayhem's alluding to is this. The number one threat to local law enforcement in this country is not Black Lives Matter, unlike what House Negro David Clark tells you, and I'm glad to see Joe Arpaio finally got convicted, that rat bastard. But the fact is, the number one threat to local law enforcement in this country are the white sovereign citizens. And when they kill cops, you hear nothing about it. And since white wing media predominantly runs the AM stations today, when those shootings, those tragic murders happen, you won't hear anything about it. What they'll do instead is tell you about some lieutenant in a suburb of Chicago who was killed by Black Lives Matter, and it turns out he actually committed suicide after embezzling who knows how much money from the police department, and also trying to hire gang members to kill a prosecuting attorney who was investigating him. And when I told folks that this guy was dirty, I had all kinds of cops on LAPD and LA Sheriff Facebook site unfriend me. Instead, what you hear about is this guy who allegedly kills all these cops in Dallas, including a white cop from Dallas who had all kinds of white supremacist Nazi tattoos and came from the LA Sheriff Vikings. But I know that doesn't meet the media. Also, this guy was the guy who should have gotten a dishonorable discharge from the Army, and yet somehow his discharge was not a dishonorable, and he had access to weapons to go into Dallas. And nobody talks about the House Negro black guy who was the chief of police in Dallas, who quietly retired after they used a bomb on a robot to blow this guy up, so we'll never know the truth. That's what's going on in this country. So when Mayhem asks this question, I'll just make it simple. If it doesn't fit the political rhetoric to create this race war scenario, you're not going to hear about it when somebody in law enforcement is killed. And even when it doesn't fit, but they can somehow manipulate it to make you think by extrapolation that somehow they're connected to Black Lives Matter, then you will hear about it. But most cops in this country who are being killed, the greatest threat to law enforcement are white supremacists, sovereign citizens who hate the U.S. government, and the number one representative of government is local law enforcement pulling them over.
All right. Liam, I thank you for your call.
Yeah.
And let me just say, because somebody just tweeting in that they got knocked off the internet, and it just happens when
I'm sure they did, Mr. Nelson. Before I came on your show today, let me tell you what happened to me. Okay. I had no phone service, I had no internet service, and once again, I just want to thank you for having me come on your show, because now I got to look under my truck again.
Well, there's so much internet traffic that got kicked off. So if you do, I'm just telling the folks, just dial back in, because that's what usually happens.
But Mr. Nelson, one thing we got to say. At least today I didn't have to call you back 5 times.
That's right. It's been worse. So far it's pretty good. But
yeah.
Let's see if we can get some more callers for you. 800-450-7876. Aski is calling from California. Aski, you're on with Mark from Anaheim.
Good afternoon, Miss Major Payne in the house.
Brother, when you say California, where exactly in California?
God dang it, that restaurant still waiting for me and you to go down and eat.
I'm sorry, Gardena?
Little fish spot. Yeah, you know where it's at.
We got to talk later. I'm sorry. Go ahead, brother. By the way, Mr. Nelson, if you don't know this, brother, hey, Mr. Nelson, if you don't know this brother pretends not to know what's going on. He knows what's going on because he's been in Hollywood for many, many years. But go ahead, brother.
But anyway, you said the most beautiful thing at the end of one of the commercial breaks, and then you get back in it in the midst of your conversation with Mayhem. Most important thing I got out of this whole show, how you said that the young people that you work with have inspired you to do things a lot different because you would have did something crazy.
Right.
That's where I come from. Just turned 60 to Mr. Anaheim, and I just got back from a trip from Hollywood. And on my bike, as I do twice a week, Hollywood to Gardena. And I'm telling you, I got a new look on life about 5 years ago, and I associate with nothing but young people now.
There it is.
I don't really have the time.
Oh my God, brother! Brother, before you go on, let me just tell you this. Looking
at things,
brother. Listen,
and the young.
There's a divine. I could tell there's a divine intervention for you to call him today because I should have expounded on this earlier. Let me just say this: the children are the future, and the children today are smarter than when we were growing up because they have more access to information. And the children today are not buying into this okey-doke racism, misogyny, and all this other crap. And I'm just going to tell you, brother, I am involved with surfers from around the world. And most of my surfers are like young white girls, of course, because unfortunately I can't find the sisters to surf. But young white girls between the age of 12 to 22. And they tell me they ain't buying into this okey-doke. And they're not going to stand for this, and they're going to make a change. And when you see young girls, 14, 15, 16 years old in places like India, Istanbul, and other places that are standing up against the oppression, thank you, brother, for calling in right now. But I'm sorry. But go ahead, brother. Oh, God.
Yeah, and that's what I want to emphasize on. The next time you're on Mr. Nelson show, I want you to do an experiment. I want you to talk about what the young people in their mindset, because I know just like you out there in Huntington Beach and you dealing with young people, I'm dealing with young people, and they really changed me in my mind, that revolution mind and all that stuff. You know my background. We did the Gregory thing when you were getting started.
Oh, yes, sir.
Background. So I want you to get a show. I want to call Mr. Nelson and have a show for like the whole total show. Instead of us so much focus on us being the underdog all the time, I want you to really start talking to people because just like I say, you are the wave of information when what's going to happen. And you see things not just because you read it or hear it, you got a spiritual connection with this universe. And
I'm cursed. You guys call it blessed, but I'm cursed. But yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah. And I call it a blessing. I ain't going to never call it cursing because I come from that same background.
Yes, sir.
And so what I'm asking you to do the next time you get on this show, let's talk about what the young people are doing, because I think us old people don't get it.
We don't get it.
We run our lives like a soap opera now.
Right.
I don't think we get it, what the young people are really doing. I'm not talking about the average guy hanging out smoking weed on the corner. I'm talking about the young people who are moving and shaking.
Around the world.
Around the world, not just here.
Correct.
Could you emphasize for the rest of the show on that?
Do us a favor because we're racing the clock. Can you put in a question for him so he can respond?
He just did, Mr. Nelson. I can respond to this.
All right,
All right, I don't know. See, listen, here's the thing, folks, okay? When Trump and Pence swore in, I was done with radio shows. This is only the third show I've done with Mr. Nelson since Trump and Pence swore in, and I shouldn't even be on here today. But Mr. Nelson, behind the scenes, has always given me a hard time. I said I would not come back on the show, but I also feel a moral obligation and responsibility to the people to come out and talk to them, and that's why I left the surf contest today. I'm not going to say when I'm going to be on Mr. Nelson's show again, but what I will say is this. If the divine wisdom touches me and tells me I should come back on the show, I will talk to Mr. Nelson, and in the future, we will gear that show towards the children of the future, because the brother has a very good point, Mr. Nelson. They've helped me to maintain my sanity, because when I look at them, they give me hope into the future. Now, I know we're running out of time, so I'm just going to say once again, if you want to get in touch with me, Mark from Anaheim, Political Sarcasm 101. And Mr. Nelson, I think we're really getting close to the end of the hour here, so I just want to thank you once again for allowing me to come on as your guest.
Well, before you go, they say we've got 2 minutes. They just told me so. Do you want to take another call?
I want to thank Kathy Hughes for allowing us to have this show, and if we get enough time, I will take another call.
All right. Ron's calling from Palm Beach in Florida. He's on line 5. Ron, your question real quick for Mark?
Yes, I just want to say thank you for taking my call. And I want to thank Mark from Anaheim because I am prepared for the Civil War. And I am a minority. I am Hispanic. And I do know what's coming because I see it every day.
Hell yeah, where you are, especially where you are. And now they're talking about doing fracking down in Florida. What the hell?
Yeah, believe me, I know, sir. But I have 2 quick questions, okay?
Yes, sir.
When you say when you say the presidents are related by blood, are they connected with the Queen of England? And what is America? Is America a corporation or a country? Where are we exactly? And does the Queen?
Good question, Ron. I'm going to push you guys. We've got 60 seconds. Go ahead,
yes,
Mark.
sir. All right. Let me do this in 60 seconds. Yes, I am referring to the royal family. As a Marine Corps officer, I never worked for a general who didn't have a secretary who came from Great Britain, so I just leave it at that. People think that the United States has independence. You ain't got a damn thing with independence. We are so tied into the UK, and I just told you, the greatest spy scandal in LAPD history was Western Goals. They left the U.S., now they're headquartered in Great Britain, and they're bigger and better than ever. As far as a corporation, the President of the United States does not run this country. He or she is the CEO of United States Incorporated. If you want a better idea what I'm talking about, see the movie The Rock with Sean Connery. Bye, Mr. Nelson.